Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. A very good morning to you because it is morning here in Cyprus. It's extremely early. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. So Hollywood is in decay. I, I believe that. I believe any industry that can't bring in a crowd consistently is in trouble. We've seen the ratings for the Oscars. They're going down and down and down because the industry has gone politically mad and is trying to lecture people all the time. You've got to understand here, when you've got people who work in the industry who are sex offenders, murderers, drug addicts, drug pushers, and they're trying to lecture us on morality, it's very difficult because as a kid, I didn't know the true face of Hollywood. I thought they were the nice people they represented that they were. The difference, of course, was back then, I'm talking about legends. I'm talking about Robert De Niro, Al Pacino. I'm talking about Marlon Brando. I'm talking about Christopher Reeve. I'm talking about Gene Hackman. I'm talking about Kevin Costner, Mel Gibson. The list. These are people that will be remembered for thousands of years. But if we go back to the 21st century, when I think of the people who are about now, I just don't think I'm going to, forget me, because I won't be around anymore. I don't think the next generation in 50, 60 years' time will remember them. But people will always remember Clark Gable in Gone with the Wind. Everyone will remember Christopher Reeve in Superman the movie. Everyone will remember what George Lucas achieved with his Star Wars trilogy. Who's going to remember the current Star Wars trilogy? I tell you, no one. Not in 50 or 60 years. It's going to be long forgotten. Very few things that are going to be made will be remembered. People will talk about the MCU. I don't think it will be particularly remembered in 50 years' time. I think it will be maybe at the edge of some people's minds. But those films are not iconic. They're not great films. It's exciting for Marvel fans to have those films to refer to, yes, and to watch them and to see characters that they've been reading all their lives come into live action and the mainstream are loving them. But memorable films. Is Iron Man a memorable film? No. Is Iron Man 2 a memorable film? No. Is Iron Man 3 a memorable film? No. Is The Incredible Hulk a memorable film? No. Captain America, The Winter Soldier is a really good film. Am I going to remember it? I doubt it. And the list goes on. Now, you talk about Infinity War. That may live long in the memory. It may not. But ultimately, 9 out of 10 of these films from this biggest franchise of all time, by the way, are not going to be remembered because they're not very memorable films. And they don't make memorable films now. I recently went to see Aquaman. I'm a massive DC fan. I'm a massive DCEU fan. I wonder if I'll remember Aquaman in 60 years' time. Well, as I keep on saying, I'm not going to be alive. I must think I'm immortal or something. But do you know what I mean? Am I going to remember that film? A film like Man of Steel and Batman v Superman are going to be remembered because of what those films mean to so many of us. And I know a lot of you don't like those films, but ultimately those two films are made differently to other films. So I'm not putting down Aquaman. I love and adore Aquaman. And, probably one of the reasons that I won't remember it if I'm around in 50 years, which is impossible, but just to say that Aquaman isn't my character. So for me, I will support DC. I enjoyed that film, but it's a bigger thing for me to see Batman and Superman and Spider-Man on the big screen. And when they're done well, it's something truly special. And I think Batman v Superman and Man of Steel were very special films that will live long in the memory. But there's not enough of these films for us to remember. The Force Awakens is not going to be remembered. The Last Jedi will be remembered probably for the wrong reasons. And God knows Episode 9. Let me tell you, there isn't a balance in Hollywood right now. You see, the thing is, when I was growing up, the smaller films were just as interesting to go and watch as the big films. Even in the 90s and the early noughties, their romantic comedies were making as much money as the blockbusters. Well, they're not making those films anymore. The little films just don't make the money anymore. There's no interest. There's just hunger for blockbusters. There's just hunger for superheroes. A superhero film in terms of Infinity War can make over $2 billion. But a smaller film with a better script and better actors and a better director will make much less. So how can a an industry can be conducive as a success, I don't know. You can't. You see, at the end of the year, they will tell you, the media will tell you how much Hollywood have made it, and it could be. I mean, if you think about Infinity War making over 2 billion, then you know that the industry could be around. Could it be about 3 or 4 billion by? If you look at a year's total, I don't know how it works. But yeah, so they give you a big figure. But the reality is, then you add how much all these films cost to make and to market all together as well. You see, they never tell you that, do they? They never they tell you how much has been brought in, but they never tell you what's been paid out. And it's very clever, because what they do by the end of the year, they try and bring confidence into the industry. And in terms of Hollywood, there is no confidence, because their TV networks are not very varied anymore. Their program contents are not very interesting in terms of drama. You know, like the fantastic dramas we had in the early noughties, like 24, Lost, Alias, Prison Break, Smallville. You know, the list is endless. They were amazing, groundbreaking shows. Well, no, they don't have amazing, groundbreaking shows. Walking Dead isn't very good anymore. Was it any good ever? Then you've got Game of Thrones, which is coming to an end. So the only really creative element that's doing anything in Hollywood to try and balance it out and give the consumer kind of this variety is Netflix. You go onto Netflix, there's a varied amount of films of their own brand, of their originals. You look at their TV shows, there's a variety there as well. The kind of variety we used to have from Hollywood in the 80s, 90s and early noughties. Well, now it's been, like their attitude now is, fuck it, let's just make a $2 billion movie. Let's just make loads of Marvel movies. Let's keep on churning out the DC movies. And let's think of other things we can reboot that can make us easy money. What has happened to them is they've become lazy. They've become lazy. And when you become lazy and you're not committed to what you're doing anymore, I think it's the mixture of their laziness and their obsession with this political agenda, and them, lecturing us in morals. This is where it's all gone wrong. So it's a mixture. So the consumer is walking away from not just Hollywood, but the entertainment industry as a whole. Because the beautiful thing is now, you can collect anything you want. And I've said this before, on Blu-ray and DVD. So you can create your own channel in a way, right? So when something's not working, you move a little further out west. That's what the old saying is, isn't it? And the point is here that this is why Hollywood is failing within the mainstream audience to interest them in the smaller films. When I was growing up, we loved little independent films. We'd watch them, and would make a bit of money, and they'd be recognised in the Oscars as well. And this is the problem now. So you're seeing these big flashy trailers for the next superhero film, for the next Star Wars film, and you'll probably go and see them. But you have no interest now because of what they've done and how Hollywood have conducted themselves in the smaller films. But you see, me growing up, a film like Field of Dreams was as epic as Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which was back then judged as a big blockbuster, and it made big blockbuster money. Same actor, Kevin Costner, a big fan of his. But yeah, so a little afternoon film for me, which is how I would describe Field of Dreams. A charming story about a man who hears a voice that says, if you build it, he will come. So he builds a baseball field in his, on his land, and he starts losing money. And, he goes on this journey, and you've got these great actors in it, like Burt Lancaster, and, lots of iconic actors, and it's a brilliant film. And it's a tearjerker in the end. But what I'm saying is, what I'm trying to say to you is, there's no one in this generation who will sit there and have the concentration and patience to watch Field of Dreams. They want bright lights, big music, epic CGI, because it's what we've been fed on. But when you feed people on that and that's all they want, then you lose the balance, you lose the variety. I predict Hollywood will go bankrupt within 20 years. It will be a dead industry because of the way they're conducting themselves. They're driving people out of the franchises. You see, because what it's become, right, the Hollywood franchise, it's become, because of the success of the MCU, everyone's trying to get a bit of that action, right? So if your mate pulls a supermodel, you try and pull another supermodel to compete with him, and then you end up losing in the end, right? And this is what's happened with Hollywood. So all studios want a franchise. So Disney and Marvel have been very successful with their Pixar movies, with their MCU movies. Warner Brothers have had an element of success with their DC movies. They haven't been reviewed very well, but in terms of box office, Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, and Wonder Woman have done extremely well, to be honest. So the upper scale, no, they haven't broken records as such, but they've made good money. And so it's kind of, these studios think, yes, it's all about the franchises. But what happens then? You leave everything behind, because either they're doing horror blockbusters or superhero blockbusters or sci-fi blockbusters. But as I say, what about the comedies? Where's the comedies? Where's the rom-coms? Where's the little movies? Like Field of Dreams? They're not there. And if you haven't got if you've got no foundations within your business model, in the end, it does go downhill, and it will. I predict it. I can see it within their TV. And the only kind of company that's going to survive this is Netflix, is Prime, because what they're going after is a model of originality and variety, especially Netflix, and they can see it. I think what happened with the Marvel Netflix shows is obvious to me. What happened, that Disney are doing their little Disney Plus streaming service, and they weren't going to allow Netflix to have that stuff. And I think Netflix are not particularly worried about it. It just gives them more money and more of an opportunity to give us more original content. But they're still going to have the other stuff on there, but I think their content will become more and more watched and more valuable. And maybe in 25 years' time, Netflix will just have their originals on there because they'll be so good. We'll be desperate to watch them. We won't care if Friends isn't on Netflix anymore. What? So think about that, Mick. But yeah, so I think the future is going to change. I think the entertainment industry will not be the moneymaker or the powerhouse when you compare it to other businesses. I think other businesses will come to the forefront while the film industry goes downhill. And I just see it as an insider of this entertainment industry, as someone who works on it as in a lesser level. And when you hear and see some of the money that the big Hollywood studios are losing, I mean, these are people who should know what to do and what not to do. But as I say, it doesn't matter if you're the biggest studio or the smallest studio. Yes, your blockbusters are important, your Harry Potters, your Star Wars, your superhero movies. I love them. I do love them. But it can't just be about those films. There must be a balance. There must be a variety. And right now, Hollywood doesn't have that variety. And as I say, when I look at the stars of today, they're not memorable stars. The actors and actresses of today, or shall I call them the male actors and female actors of today, because many female actors don't like to be called actresses. I know, frustrating, isn't it? It's all about boxes and what you're called, and ridiculous. Maybe they should focus on their industry, which is dying. Hollywood is dying a slow, painful death. And what they don't tell you about are the many movie houses closing down around America, around Europe, because there's just not a call for them. Because, there's not a new blockbuster in a cinema every day. And that's the only thing people are going into their droves to watch. It was interesting here in Cyprus when I went to see Aquaman the other day, and there was a little film, I can't remember what it was, and the queue for Aquaman was out there. But for the little film, it was a very small queue. And I think this is the element. I remember when I went to the cinema with my brother and my cousin to see Outrageous Fortune, and I think there was another big tentpole film at the same time. But we decided to see Outrageous Fortune because we liked Shelley Long and we liked Bette Midler, and we thought they were funny actors, and we went there, and we had such a great experience. Outrageous Fortune is an 80s movie, as I say, with Bette Midler and Shelley Long. Try and find it, try and download it from somewhere, because it really is a fun movie. It's entertaining. And this is what we've lost now, the funny, smaller movie. Because Outrageous Fortune was never a blockbuster. And it was really one of those, for me, it probably didn't even make much money, but I'd go back and watch that now. I remember my experience in the cinema, popcorn, Slush or whatever it was back then. And we were in hysterics. It was so entertaining. This is what we've lost. The variety of film that we used to have. Comedies, and even the kind of really the 80s were the invention of the blockbuster. Jaws, Star Wars, Gremlins, Back to the Future. Back to the Future will be remembered for the rest of time. Are you going to remember Mortal Engines? Probably because it's a flop, but you're not going to remember it, are you? But then let's look at the highest successful kind of blockbusters. I think that you're not going to remember them like you remember your Back to the Futures. And this is the thing. Nothing that's being done now is going to be cemented in the industry's kind of iconic status. This isn't an iconic era for films, for creatives, for actors. These are not people who will be seen as legends. The people that I grew up watching are official legends, people that will be remembered for the next 200 years from many, many generations. Now you can see through these people. You know who they are. You know their talent is mediocre and average. There's very few people in this industry now worth remembering. And this is the problem. And you know what? I'm so proud. I grew up in an era where I was watching legends and icons make legendary and iconic content. And this is what we don't have today. We don't have that. We're very lucky. We've got this beautiful CGI technology. We've got speakers and massive TVs like the one behind me. So visually, it's more stunning than it was then. But I tell you what, I'll take Back to the Future and New Hope or Superman the movie over anything that's from the modern industry, because what those films had, they may have not had the tech. They still had good tech, by the way, but they had a heart. They had a soul, they had a depth, and the actors playing the characters, everyone believed in what they were doing. It was for the right reasons. And now it's about politics, it's about gender equality, it's about when the entertainment industry take away the entertainment element and originality and creativity away from this industry, it's going to die. And not just Hollywood. Ultimately, the entertainment industry will die in the next 20, 30 years because they have got the wrong aspirations for what they want. I hope you've enjoyed the video. This is my personal opinion. It could be deemed that I'm some old person looking at the past with rose-coloured glasses and not liking the future like my grandparents and my parents before them. But I believe in what I'm saying. I believe that this industry is in decay, and someone has to grab hold of it and say, let's bring back the values that made this industry fabulous.